Boys want to call one?
Sure.
You know she meant the cake, right?
Okay, some things are meant to be silly, but choosing Web Interactive Technologies to host your business online is like the opposite of silly.
They'll work with you and build your custom website.
And the search engine optimization? Finding your company will be... You get it.
As a business, you have to stand out. We're just pointing you in the right direction. Choose Web Interactive Technologies. Don't be silly.
All right, NFL football fans, fantasy football owners, welcome back to the Extra Points Fantasy Football Show. Let's go ahead and wrap things up today by taking a look at our updated rankings for the wide receiver position. Looking at our top 10 here, Jackson Smith-Njigba, the Seattle Seahawks, continues to dominate. Has been the hottest receiver from beginning to end through the first 6 weeks of the season without a shadow of a doubt. Right behind him, a fellow Ohio State Buckeye as well. We're talking about Emeka Ibuka, who unfortunately suffered a hamstring injury in week 6. We are waiting to get word back on that, but what we know when it comes to hamstrings, it usually puts you out a couple weeks. We are hoping for the best and want him back on the field as quickly as possible because he has, without question, been the offensive rookie of the year so far. Number 3, Puka Nacua, unfortunately suffered an ankle injury as well in week 6. Another guy we're waiting to get word back on. Hopefully he doesn't miss an extended period of time. Another guy who's been a standout performer since day one when you talk about fantasy football this year. At number 4, how about George Pickens of the Dallas Cowboys? Really has carried that passing game in the absence of CeeDee Lamb. We knew in the offseason that was going to be an excellent pickup for the Dallas Cowboys, and it was right on time because you figure if CeeDee Lamb was out and there was no George Pickens, that Dallas passing game at least would be a couple steps behind. We're getting an opportunity to see why he was so frustrated in Pittsburgh because they simply could not get him the football. Quarterback Dak Prescott does not have that problem, and George Pickens is absolutely rolling. At number 5, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, continues to be as steady as they come. We know that him and quarterback Jared Goff have a great connection. He's going to continue to put up the big PPR numbers on a weekly basis as the top target in that Lions high-powered offense. At number 6, Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons got off to a sluggish start, but you look at the gaudy numbers he put up in week 5 against the Washington Commanders, in week 6 against the Buffalo Bills. Big game on Monday Night Football. A lot of people, for the first time, really had an opportunity to see what he has to offer, and you can see why at 6'4", 215 pounds, as the main weapon in that Falcons passing game, him and quarterback Michael Penix Jr. are going to continue to get better and better. At number 7, number 8, long time stays here in the top 10 in fantasy football when you talk about wide receivers. Jamar Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals, Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. Chase certainly had a couple sluggish games in bad matchups on the road against Minnesota and at Denver, but a change at quarterback. Big game in week 5 against the Detroit Lions, and then that change of quarterback I talk about, Joe Flacco, allowed for him to get the quality targets at Green Bay. He's back on track, as we alluded to, once they lost quarterback Joe Burrow, because it is a passing league, because he's such a great player. You knew that his numbers may get a little bit lower, but right now, certainly not the case. We know that Justin Jefferson continues to find ways to make plays for that Minnesota Vikings offense. A couple guys who are giving you excellent value right now, and we can just kind of work our way right on through. When we talk about number 9, DK Metcalf has been an absolute steal for owners in drafts. Certainly has came over to Pittsburgh and make a positive splash in that offense. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers continuing to find him early and often. Number 10, Rome Odunze of the Chicago Bears had a touchdown call back on a controversial call in that Monday night game against Washington. Nonetheless, has gotten off to an extremely hot start as well. Let's go ahead and roll over to our rankings 11 through 20 when we talk about Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins, now the main main target in that Dolphins offense with Tyreek Hill out for the year. Certainly gave him a huge boost in value. Cortland Sutton, another guy picked up in later rounds who's giving you wide receiver one value. It's a pleasant surprise there. Number 13, Nico Collins finds it hard to get a lot of daylight. We know that defenses make it their business to try to take him out of the game plan. Really the only established receiver for that Houston Texans lineup. Nonetheless, continues to find ways to be productive for your team. How about another rookie here in Tutoria McMillan of the Carolina Panthers, just getting better and better each and every week. Without question, the apple of young quarterback Bryce Young's eye out in Carolina. And number 15, Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets continues to be productive regardless of circumstance and situation as well in most weeks. Number 16, Deebo Samuel, strong start, especially without Terry McLaurin there. Another key pickup. I talked about George Pickens being a big pickup for Dallas, and what would that offense look like without Pickens there, and CeeDee Lamb has been out for close to a month. I think the same holds true here for Deebo Samuel. When you talk about Terry McLaurin being out the last couple weeks, Deebo Samuel continuing to give owners wide receiver one type production. At number 17, I had concerns, and I think we all did, about Chris Olave coming into the season, but has figured out a way to be very consistent and do something that a lot of fantasy football wide receivers have trouble doing, which is consistently, at the bare minimum, getting 5 catches for 50 yards. So congratulations to owners who have him. Probably an excellent flex play, especially in full point PPR leagues. You love what Devonta Adams is doing as a compliment over to Puka Nacua for the Los Angeles Rams. If Nacua does miss any times, then that's going to elevate Adams to that number 1 receiver for that Rams offense and give him a nice boost in value as well. Number 19, Zay Flowers. Can't take away from what he's done so far this season. We knew one starter quarterback Lamar Jackson was out of the lineup. That essentially could impact his numbers. Again, we hope Lamar gets back healthy and can get Zay Flowers back on track moving forward week 8 and after that. Stephon Diggs of the New England Patriots also getting his legs fully up under him after that ACL tear last year. It had back-to-back 100-yard games, including the big one in week 5 at the Buffalo Bills. Let's move on now to our wide receivers ranked 21 through 30. It's a lot of value here. Yes, the numbers may have been up and down, but I start looking at these guys and I'm saying, okay, who are the number 1 receivers for these respective teams? And let's face it, we're getting to a point right now in which is, who can you trust? Who has the best situation? So when you look at Brian Thomas of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Ladd McConkey of the Los Angeles Chargers, Michael Pittman Jr. of the Indianapolis Colts, Xavier Worthy of the Kansas City Chiefs, A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. Look at who their quarterbacks are. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Daniel Jones, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, some of your top performers so far this year. You move over to 26 through 30, you look at guys like Kendrick Bourne, who is filling in for a very battered San Francisco wide receiver corps. When you talk about no Ricky Pearsall the last 2 weeks, Jawan Jennings being out of the lineup most of the time. So he's a guy who's been another great waiver wire pickup and is thriving in that 49ers offense. You look at 28, Marvin Harrison Jr., 29, Wan'Dale Robinson, 30, Keenan Allen, all of those guys with solid quarterbacks. When you talk about Kyler Murray, young quarterback Jackson Dart for the Giants, and Justin Herbert again for Keenan Allen at 30. When we move on to 31 through 40, again, we're just looking for viable, trustworthy plays. When you look at guys like Devonta Smith, Khalil Shakur, Rashid Shaheed, T. Higgins, Josh Downs, Jordan Addison, Romeo Dobbs, Trey Tucker, DJ Moore, Jameson Williams. At this point in the season, those are going to be the next best set of guys that you're going to be able to trust in your lineup on a weekly basis, although the numbers may be erratic and scattered. And then we round things out with 41 through 50, and we see a lot of injured players on this list who would obviously be making more of an impact and ranked ahead of a lot of these guys. When you talk about CeeDee Lamb, Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans in particular, on the IR for the year lost is Tyreek Hill, Malik Neighbors, a pleasant surprise to a lot of fantasy football owners, myself included, who drafted him for a stash, and that is going to be the return of Rashee Rice. Shouldn't take him long to get things going as the number 1 receiver for that Kansas City Chiefs offense and a stellar quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. All right, that is going to wrap up our show for this week. Please make sure to follow me on my social media handles. I drop tons of great information and content all over the internet, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Facebook. That is also where you will be able to catch my tight end rankings. I appreciate everybody for joining us on a weekly basis. It's the Extra Points Fantasy Football Show, the place where you get expert fantasy advice for champions. Let's go.